And good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so I'm now worried, but we'll see how the questions go. Okay, I work for Land and Property Services. I suppose a tiny little bit of my background. My job description probably says it all. I'm the GI Strategy and INSPIRE Coordinator for Northern Ireland. So therefore, I have to know a little bit about an awful lot of things. I don't come from a law background. I don't have any IPR background. I don't work in our IPR section, but yet I suppose my role or my job has been to try to, as Claire says, do something, try to come up with a solution for Northern Ireland for INSPIRE. And I suppose it's from the user perspective or from what we've developed, I suppose is what I'm going to talk a little bit about today. My slides aren't as entertaining as Claire's, but my first one here, impossible task one that I was set with was can adding licensing facilitate, I suppose, easier and better access to spatial data? If E equals MC squared, does Spatial NI, which is our portal that we've developed, equal better access to data? So that's the question I'm going to, I suppose, attempt to answer. And you can see lots of intelligent people are thinking about these licensing aspects. Where are we? First of all, we're part of the United Kingdom, a small little bit over on the west. We're the only part of the United Kingdom with a land border with another member state. Zoom in, that's us there. We are implementing INSPIRE, I suppose, under Defra, or the lead organisation for the UK, but yet each of the devolved administrations, Northern Ireland including, have taken over responsibility, I suppose, for coordinating our response to INSPIRE. And liaising and coordinating with Defra for that. So Northern Ireland, when we looked at all the different data providers, all of the data that we're going to actually have to provide for INSPIRE, our business case that we came up with was to build a centralised portal. It made more sense than nobody out there really had the technology to create web services. I suppose we didn't have any web services that I know of within government in Northern Ireland, or very few, maybe one organisation. So a centralised portal, we went out to procurement to tender for that, for a complete INSPIRE solution. It had to have all tools, the whole way through from metadata, creation of view, services, download, and transformation as well. So Esri are the main, I suppose, contractor for it, and in liaison with Terra for some of the solution. So a centralised portal was our way to go, and this then we're going to link our metadata catalogue, or have done, with data.gov. So our role, Land and Property Services, our role is to coordinate all of INSPIRE within Northern Ireland, taking in our guidance from both Defra and Europe, trying to promote good practice then, actually within Northern Ireland, of what we can develop, to provide the technical infrastructure in order for everybody to meet the demands of INSPIRE, to manage then the portal that we've built, and at the very end, and probably maybe the one that should be up at the very top that's caused most of the problems, is implementing a licensing and rights management solution. A little bit about an awful lot of things, as I said. So our requirements for the rights management aspect, when we went out to procurement, we wanted something that was open to the public, that you could get access without having to register onto the system, or with minimum registration, so that it wasn't completely locked down. Because ultimately, we have a whole lot of different data providers in there. We have an awful mixture of data sets. We have data sets that we commercially sell. Land and Property Services are the national mapping agency for Northern Ireland, and our business model runs on a commercial model. We basically sell our data, and that's how we fund it. So right through to then data sets that are free as such. So it had to take in the whole range of licensing issues. We wanted also then a login because of that, because we're going to have protected data sets as well. It was going to have a login-based rights management system too, to comply with what we needed for INSPIRE. And we also added in then that it should also meet the GeoDRM standard, or something equivalent to that as well. So trying to put some sort of, I suppose, standardisation on it. So as an organisation, what do we have at the moment? Within my organisation, Land and Property Services, we have a framework agreement for all government to get access to 25 of our core data sets. And that's already signed. Each department gets access to that data at the moment, but it's delivered via a hard drive to people. We then also have our own LPS Digital 2 license. If you come to our organisation and you want to buy a data set, you've got to fill that in. And then we have individual value-added reseller licenses. Those are the main ones that we work with at the moment. But when we built the portal and started taking in other people's data sets, we have to look at, well, what new licenses will we try to create? And we created a non-commercial INSPIRE license for most of the other government data sets, because ultimately our organisation holds some of the IPR built into those. So if somebody wants to make a commercial application, they need to contact us. But at the same time, for INSPIRE uses, we created that, I suppose, to release some of that data out for INSPIRE. So we have gone a few steps, hopefully, in the right direction. We wanted to create a preview function. It was a requirement by the UK Location Programme to try before you buy. So you've got to be able to see the data or a preview of it beforehand. An emergency access license for INSPIRE purposes for environmental emergencies. And then also how to work out putting our Northern Ireland mapping agreement, which is already signed, into the portal as well. So those were some of our challenges. We sat back and thought, well, who's going to access it? What are the different roles of the people who are going to actually be there? So we wanted a guest, an anonymous user, just to come along and look at the data. Then we have our Northern Ireland mapping agreement, all of government. We want them to get straight in and get access to all of those data sets unprotected as such to them. The emergency role, so somebody could go in and actually see all the data they wanted in the whole portal if it was a massive emergency. And then also a commercial aspect of somebody maybe just purchasing some parts of data, some little snapshots of some, and getting access through that. So I suppose the structure that we ended up with when we tried to kind of map it out, so basically you can come along to the portal as a guest, and that could be a member of the public, it could be a member of Europe. The licenses that you'll be offered then are either the non-commercial INSPIRE license for most of the other government data sets, or else a preview license for our own data. Each of those then would have different limits on them, so the non-commercial license might have no spatial restrictions and potentially a one-year time limit. This is all, I suppose, just our initial thoughts of what we're going to actually put into action. I should really say that our portal it's in beta phase at the moment, and we have 3 licensed services, but we've spent so long trying to work, it's the workflow and the licensing of how we're going to do it. The technology bit is the simple bit. The getting to this stage is the harder bit, and it's trying to, I suppose, take all of the different data we've got and put it into some sort of format to get use or get access to it. So we've different click licenses, an anonymous license, and will we be able to monitor who those people are? No, we won't. We'll just know somebody, anonymous person looked at that data set. So our next level then, somebody could actually register onto the portal, input your details, and if you're in a government organisation, we can move you into the NEMA group, so you'll get access to all the web services, web feature services, web download services for our actual mapping ourselves. That will be concluded by an individual licence, and then you can also get access to all of the other non-commercial INSPIRE services. You can also then, if you don't log in, that's actually, we want to bypass as well. Some of our NEMA users might want to actually consume some of the web services into their own systems. So we want to almost bypass the licensing system in that sense. So we're going to manage that through a non-licensed URL that we can monitor as well, just manually. If somebody then wants to come in and actually buy some of our data, then we'll move them into a different group, and they get access, click and accept our Digital 2 license and conclude that. Our emergency use, we're going to generate usernames and passwords. We're hoping to maybe work on a cross-border emergency license where we might maybe identify with Ireland maybe 10, 15 organisations on each side of the border of literally individual people that we would want to be able to access in a potential emergency situation all of the data on the portal. So we're working on that at the moment as well. And then finally then our commercial individual licenses would just be done on a ad hoc basis, because there would be different parameters, I suppose, involved in them. So I'm going to attempt to give a demo, not a live demo. Most people, anybody who was at my Sunday workshop would be glad to hear, but we have ways and means. So this Should hopefully click in. So this is an anonymous user, so you don't have to log in, don't have to register. I'm just going to search for some data on the portal. So a list of some of the web services that we've created so far. Sorry, you can see, click on the different, get all the different information, look at metadata, etc. there. So this is a license service then for our transport network. So I just want to literally look at that. So I click on that, add to map, which will open up our map viewer. I have to decide which license I want. I've got to accept the preview license just by clicking on it. Accept the terms of use of that license. And as if by magic, it should open up the portal this time properly and display the data. So as this is one of the protected, it's one of our own data sets, you're going to see a spatially restricted area, and it's time limited too. So that's the data now has popped up on the top corner. So you can see we've just given people a little snippet of the data so you can see what it's like, see where it is, and we've got our, I suppose, our copyright statement then tagged on to the bottom of the web service that goes with it. It's just zooming in a little bit to show you the data. Rudiger's going to give the, shortly he'll put in the background bit as to how we actually did this. Okay. So my next one then, if you're a registered NEMA user, so you've access then to basically all of our data sets, but the one thing you're going to have to do is to actually register. If I can start this one, yeah. So you're going to have to register on the system and then actually log in, put in your username and your password. And then if we go again to actually, oh yeah, you can get a list along the top. Then once you've registered, you'll always be able to see all the different licenses that you've actually concluded. So you can keep an eye on what data you've actually accepted, or if you're trying to go back to say, well, what actually am I allowed to do with that data, you can look at it. So once I go to add it on, these are different licenses that I've concluded earlier. So I can create a new license or actually conclude one that I have. So that pops up with literally just a little reminder of, by the way, you're accessing this under your framework agreement, and these are the things that you can't do with the data. And once I click Add to Map on this, then it should bring me up the complete data set. So there's no spatial restrictions at all on it. Okay, so there we go. And then this is just looking at if I wanted to conclude a new license, just to show you the process that you would go through at the first point. So I can choose between accepting a NEMA license or just a registered preview. If I'm a NEMA customer, then I'll go, no, I actually want to see the whole data set. I click on the NEMA license. There's no price included in this. We've got a separate, I suppose, commercial engine at the moment. So it's telling me what I can't do with it. I can see what get feature, get capabilities I can get, and then if I just scroll down the terms of use of the license, I have to click to accept the license in the little box before I actually conclude it. Once I conclude that license, then it generates a unique UUID for me, for you as that registered user. And that should just display the data again now, I think. Yeah. Okay, so just, the conclusion of my license. I could go into my licenses then, and it will show the profile. Click on my licenses, and I can see all the different ones that are registered to me. If I go down and find the one that I actually just concluded, system, take it into my own GI system, and that is my final, this is my last demo then, to actually show how I can take this. It's just a quick copy the copy the URL, open ArcMap, and add it in as a service, WMS. So we just paste it in. That's the tag end of that, which is completely unique to me. Once I try to add it in, it prompts me for my username and my password then. So I've got to input those again. Accept that. And it will bring in the transport data, which I then just add to my service, or to my ArcMap. Simples. Okay, so you can see the data and the copyright statement then that follows it. I'm zooming in. Okay, so as I suppose a little summary, I think the positives and negatives of what we've done of the centralised solution. The positives, or the cost savings really, that we've created a solution for not every data provider in Northern Ireland will have to actually implement their own solutions. We've got the flexibility that we can apply lots of different licenses to the same services for different users. It's a simple click licensing system, and I think that going back to Einstein at the start, that I think, okay, it's not the best solution, I suppose, and I don't mean in the technical side of things, I mean in us deciding the workflow of that, but we've just tried to do something and tried to get something out there, and I think that we have probably enabled wider access to the data itself. And the fact that then we can create bespoke licenses, make them spatially or temporarily bound, is a great advantage. So we can let people have little snippets of the data rather than somebody having to sign a license before they actually get anything. The negatives, one negative that I could come up with was, and that's probably leading back to Robin's question earlier, that then there's an impression that LPS, or the licensing authority for all of Northern Ireland government, and everybody then looks to us for guidance in that, because most of the organisations of the public authorities out there don't have a proper IPR branch and don't have, I suppose, the knowledge or the background to do this, don't actually want to either, and would prefer somebody else to create the solution for them. But I'm now going to hand over to Rudiger, who's going to show you a little bit of the technical background. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So, as Suzanne said, I would like to talk quite briefly about the technical basis of it, which is based on one of our products called License Manager, and just to show how this integrates into the workflow. So this is probably the unprotected use case. So you have your services on the right-hand side, you have the user. The user can access that directly, and this is exactly what for certain kinds of data and certain kinds of services you want to prevent, and get some control into that. So we want to make sure that the user actually has signed a license and something like that. So you need some kind of system which intercepts the communication between the client and the service, and which checks, did the user really accept the license conditions, did he pay for the license, or whatever was the obligation there. And you also need some kind of means for the user just to get such a license, so to accept the terms and conditions, so what you have seen in the workflow before, and which finally creates the license as a basis for your access rights. And these different aspects are covered by that solution. So it's just acting in front of the data services. So how does the license model look like? This is more or less quite easy. So what you need is some kind of description of the license. So what is it all about? So which kind of service do you access with that license? Before getting such a license, of course, you need to know what it's all about. You have to have some kinds of terms and conditions, because this is the primary reason to do licensing at all. So what is allowed for you to do with the service, what is forbidden, and something like that. So this is what you really need, and all the other parts which are on that slide are optional parts which can extend, let's say, the range of use cases you can support. So licenses, for instance, can have configuration options. So you could configure, let's say, different areas which you want to license, and that can have impacts on prices, so you can have price models in there and something like that. You can also restrict access rights, so have certain licenses, as you have seen in the examples for the anonymous user. The trial license is only restricted to a certain area and doesn't show the complete content of that service. So these are all additional options you can add to that license, but which are not required. And just to give you an impression how to set up such a system, so first of all you need to have some kind of user management system, at least if you have also licenses which are not for the anonymous user. So if you have licenses for registered user, of course you need some kind of user management to be able to assign these different licenses to the appropriate users. Then you have to register your services in the license manager. Of course, license manager needs to be aware which services it protects. And then you create the license models. And the license models are then the offers for the user to conclude, and via concluding these licenses to get access to the service. Just a quick view on how this looks like from a management point of view. So this is the management interface of Security Manager, and you see on the left-hand side the service is selected, which Suzanne just showed. This is the anonymous preview license, what we are seeing here. So there's a description above. It's assigned to the user role anonymous, as you see below. You have some kinds of terms of use which are quite brief for this anonymous use case. For the other one it's much longer, but you are quite flexible with putting in, let's say, your legal statements as you need. And this is the way how to restrict access rights afterwards. So you have the different layers. You can define what you are able to do with it. For instance, you could also restrict certain operations of your service. You could restrict access to feature info, for instance, just deliver the image to the user but not the information on feature attributes and something like that. This is all not the case here, but we have a spatial obligation, as you see down there. Obligations are some kind of filter statements in there, and the obligation just refers to a certain geometry, which is the preview area here, and having this in the obligation just ensures that for each request based on this license type, let's say the visibility of the data is restricted to this geometry. And this is all to set up such a license, and that's all I wanted to show to you. Thank you.
Thank you to both Susan and Rüdiger. Any questions from the assembly? Yes, Raj?
It's supposed to be. Oh, it's not. Just waking Claire up. Suzanne, I guess the question has to do with when you go down the road of putting in licensing, and you make the decision to have licensing modules. How long did it take to sort out the licensing strategy? How many people were involved? What levels of authority, responsibility did you have to get involved in putting together the model, which then is implemented quite easily using Rüdiger's fantastic software?
Okay, well, I suppose the people involved were myself, the two people, I suppose, from our side as to the INSPIRE side as to what we wanted to do, myself and my boss, and our IPR branch, one member of the IPR branch, and it was trying to explain the concept of INSPIRE to him and explain how people had to get access to the data and how we were going to have to try to fit what we put into it. So not many people involved, but a long process. So I would say a good number of months to try to work out the workflow, because we wanted to work out the users, the different groups we had, the licenses that existed, the new licenses we were going to have to potentially create. So definitely probably I suppose about maybe 6 months in total, but we were doing an awful lot of other things at the same time, but it was always bubbling in the background, trying to get our technological build, I suppose. Getting the portal up was essential. We have the portal there with an awful lot of services not licensed on it at the moment, but that's because we're literally working through the licensing model now, so within the next week or so we should have most of them covered, but the workflow is the hardest bit and the longest.
If no questions,